Namaste, my name is Inge Patsch and welcome to the series Social Business. Today, Type C, supplier-oriented social business. If you would like to know more about the background of the typology or about the other social business types, please visit my other movies which you find on this channel. So, a social business type C is same like most other social business, an organization in which the social programs are fully integrated in the enterprise activity. Or said differently, by doing a business, you solve actually a social problem. Social business type C problems are normally located somewhere in the society or economic sphere of sustainability, so they are more concerned on these two pillars than probably on the environmental pillar, while they're conscious about this. So in a type C supplier-oriented social business, we can say the beneficiaries are the supplier of the given social business, and they purchase a certain product or raw material from their beneficiaries, produce them or simply trade them to a market of customers which they wouldn't have access otherwise. So such a type C social business is actually centered around the needs and the current situation of the suppliers, and then they are actually the baseline, and around them you actually create a business model which is viable and which is in the same time, of course, conscious and sustainable towards customers, environment, society, and employees. So what type of problems can a social business type C solve? So on the one hand, it can improve the competition, or it can improve the viability of small-scale producers of any kind. Mainly, very often it's agriculture or small handicrafts, but theoretically it can be everything. It can help to promote regions or rural areas, so to build local economies in a certain region. It can help to reduce transaction costs. So on the one hand, the financial aspect involved in it, but on the other hand, also the connection between a consumer and his product can become a closer one through such a social business. And then it can make supply chains transparent. As we all know, there are certain products which are really having very complicated, product elements in them which are coming from very questionable sources. So this could also be a topic a social business type C is working on. So what are questions we can ask ourselves, or someone who is starting or running a type C social business, which we can derive from the economy of the common good, so the common good matrix. So the one thing would be saying, are you able to source regionally, socially friendly, as well as environmentally regenerative? So this is actually a huge challenge if you say, okay, your main concern as a social business is your suppliers. Looking into this thing is like one of the key aspects, especially as all three together, regionally, socially friendly, and environmentally friendly, is something I have seen in real life. If you want to like cover a full portfolio which your clients are also happy with, very often you need the one or other product which can actually not be sourced regionally, socially friendly, and environmentally friendly. So in that case, you should have some kind of strategy in head. How do you solve issues like this? How do you examine the impact of the product and services all down the supply chain? So as a supplier-oriented social business, you should be very conscious about the whole supply chain and not just your direct deliverers. So if you, let's say you're handicrafts, you work with small handicraft producers. Well, it is, if you follow the common good matrix, you should actually also question, where do the handicraft producers take their raw materials from? So where do they take the paints from? Where do they take the wool from, etc., etc.? So that you can make sure that not like 2 steps down the line someone is suffering again, but that you make sure your whole supply chain is kind of clean or sustainable or socially friendly. Do you have a structure for fair pricing? So how do you deal with your suppliers? What is the pricing structure? Is there some kind of security backup for them for the case of sickness, or of, in agriculture, for example, of natural disasters? So how do you compensate for this? Is also a big question which I think is a central thing which you should be aware and discussing about. Do your suppliers need empowerment, skills, access to technology, or anything similar they cannot acquire alone? So is there something you can do beyond being like the intermediary on saying, okay, maybe an insurance, or maybe that you purchase a processing machine for the agricultural products, which would not be feasible for all small farmers on their own, for example. And for the last question which we could ask, I would like to make a very short excursion with you on the theory of transaction cost and the principal agent theory, which is also explaining how a type C social business can actually help. So Quasi was writing in 1961 already. In order to carry out a market transaction, it is necessary to discover who it is that one wishes to deal with, to inform people that one wishes to deal, and on what terms, to conduct negotiations leading up to a bargain, to draw up the contract, to undertake the inspection needed to make sure that the terms of the contract are being observed, and so on. So all these activities is something Quasi would call transaction cost, and they are like adding on and making the market not the invisible hand of just supply and demand, which is still a predominant theory, but something which is much more complicated. A second concept I would like to introduce is the principal agent theory. So the assumption is that in market transactions, principals hire agents to perform a certain activity. So the principal is like the customer or the client who is hiring someone, an agent, who has insider knowledge in this case. So the information is distributed asymmetrically because the agent knows more about the market or about a product. And then both are acting kind of in their self-interest. So you have to assume in game theory that there is always a hidden agenda. So the consequence we know from principal agent theory is that the principal is not optimally participating in the market as he said, the information is distributed asymmetrically, so he has to rely on the agent, which might have his own agenda. So this is, for example, leading to too little payment for suppliers, too high prices for clients, or unnecessary or wrong products for clients. If you think, for example, about the classical joke of banking employee who wants to sell you kind of another insurance which you actually don't know what you need it for. And in worst case, this can lead to no transaction, and no transaction means that actually, it's not the optimal welfare which we would achieve if really every product or service would be optimally distributed so that we all can live in abundance, no? So considering the type C social businesses, we can now, I have made up the following hypothesis. Small suppliers have very high transaction costs, so they are not able to participate in the market, and therefore these small suppliers require intermediaries to access the market. But those intermediaries are the agents according to principal agent theory, and especially from Nepal, for example, I know it, but it's probably the same for many other countries. Intermediaries often have a monopoly. So if I think about coffee trading from Nepal, there is a big coffee mafia going on, who is controlling the price, and there is no way around this. But not only in Nepal, I would say also if you think about, for example, the whole food or electronics sector, you don't have much choice over here on village electronics you buy. Or also the big five, I think it's big 10 in food, so who are, I don't have the exact numbers in mind, but something around 80% of all our food is going through the same 5 supermarkets in Germany and through the same 10 brands, something like this. So this is what is happening, and I think this is where a type C social business can also provide an intermediary link, which is really looking after the suppliers, following the indicating questions we saw above. Furthermore, there are 2 special type of type C social business, I would say. The one would be the cooperative. So a cooperative where we could roughly say as a rule of thumb, the suppliers are the members, are the customers. So where you have this local aspect of dealing with people whom you know very well. So there is this local proximity in which a cooperative normally works, trying to supply from the local to the local. At least in theory, that's what the cooperative should be like. And I think many cooperatives are really working according to this. Furthermore, cooperatives have very often this democratic structure, so the members are all having a voting rights and the board is elected. So At least in theory, again, there should not be too much corruption or power management going on. So it should be really something from the people for the people. Another special case in type C would be the sharing economy. So where you can say the suppliers are individuals rather than businesses, which can have a very positive effect, which can have an impact on these individuals, so it easily empowers me, normally through very strong technological support. So you have an app or you have a website which is coordinating what would have not been possible before. So here the intermediary role of the social business is to reduce the transaction cost through using internet to bring people together who search something and who deliver something. Yet, with the sharing economy, there is, of course, always the question to ask, saying, is there a preference for those who have capital? Will it widen the gap of those who have from those who have not? And I think we will see two examples, or we'll see a few examples later, where this has been successfully overcome. So what is the limitation and risk now of type C social business? So the one question is, if you have producers of a very simple product, raw material product like milk, for example, you always have to ask yourself, well, is the market probably already saturated, as it is the case for milk in Europe, where the agriculture policies for so many years have been putting on dairy and meat production. Or is there a market for it? And if not, you have to maybe think about a processing aspect. So this could be one challenge you might have in such a type C social business. The other one is to say, okay, of course, networking and really engaging with your suppliers and empowering them, talking to them what they need, improving their skills, etc., requires manpower and time. And there is the question, will you find a business model which is able to cover this networking cost for you? Because not only the big five food markets, for example, or the big five food houses are actually already dumping the price down a lot. So it will be really, it could be tricky for you to find, not impossible, but you have to be very innovative, I guess, with a business model to overcome this issue. Another question is, of course, in which global power structures you will struggle into. So if you think about a more supply chain oriented social business, which really wants to make things differently, but you might still need certain raw material as gold or copper or whatsoever, are you able to even source that, or will you end up just being at the border of a country where you say, okay, you really need now a certain material which we don't find in Europe, and how can you handle this? So this is another challenging thing your business might face. As well as, can you find local suppliers is another topic. So for example, many of the basic jobs are not existing anymore over here. We also see it now during COVID-19, no? That well, we figure out what are all the basic industries which we do not have anymore. So will you be able to find someone? Will be able to find people who have still the skill? Like in the picture we see a tanner. So I heard the other day, I heard an interview saying that there is no active tanner anymore in Wallachia. So if you would need as a raw material leather for whatever you want to do, you might have even trouble finding suppliers who can help you. So this is another question in your business model, I would say. So let us have a look at now a few examples of such a type C social business. So the first one is a local one in Austria. It's called Netzwerk.at, written with a S rather than a Z in German language. And this is a network of cooperatives, food cooperatives, who all work according to the same pattern. They have like in their every individual cooperative has like a network of 40, 50, 60 different suppliers of whichever type of food items available in their proximity, from vegetables to dairy products, over bread, mushrooms, noodles, so mainly food and beverages, but also some of them have washing powder or similar, locally and socially and economically friendly, so organically certified products available. And then as a consumer, you can actually order in an online web shop every week until Tuesday, and on Friday your order will be delivered. So they will collect like the orders of all the different suppliers, and then they will deliver them to certain delivery stations where you can pick them up. So this has been very strong in actually bringing local suppliers closer to the consciousness, and to also the possibility that as an individual, I cannot go and visit 30 or 40 different farmers to get some milk there and get some cheese there and get some vegetables there, but rather than this is all like jointly organized through this central co-op. Same basic idea, but on a much, much bigger scale, is Hansa Lim from South Korea, who have been gathering. They have around 600,000 members meanwhile, and several hundreds of producers which produce all locally, organically, and seasonal foods, and in 25 different retail stores in the city. As a member, you can go and you can purchase. So it's estimated that more than 1 billion people is actually making their purchases on a daily basis from these very sustainable farmers, and all the farmers get actually an incredible amount of the revenue. Mainly 75% or 75 cents of every euro sold in the supermarket is actually going to the farmer, which is an incredible number, because if we compare it, I think for milk it's between 40 to 50% which goes to the farmer, and the rest is lost in the supply chain. And then there are other products such as potatoes, where it's only 1% in Austria going to the farmer. So you have to imagine that the farmer is selling his kg of potato for 1 cent per kg, and we have to buy it in the supermarket for around €1 per kg. So Hansa Lim has been doing an incredible job to really bring the consumer as well and the producers much, much closer together. And for me, it's an excellent example of a very successful, scalable social business in this area of suppliers, or type C suppliers. Another example, which is from a very different background, which is tackling a very different problem, is the Fairphone. So the Fairphone producers were actually wondering, okay, it seems like impossible to buy fair electronics, and saying, okay, we want to have a mobile phone which is on the one hand as ecologically friendly as it can be. So they have developed this mobile phone to be, you can replace each and every single part. So if your camera is broken, you just have to replace the camera. If your battery is broken, you can replace the battery. If your screen is broken, you can replace the screen. In addition, they have been trying to source each and every raw material as socially friendly as possible. So whenever there were several alternatives for any metal or other raw material, they would choose the socially more friendly one. Whenever they didn't have a choice, because there was only like 1 or 2 global producers of a certain raw material, they try to really engage with civil society initiatives which try to improve the working conditions of the people involved in the supply chain. And then last but not least, as always, I close down my examples with a restaurant. So a type C restaurant, which I really like, and maybe one day I will be there, is the restaurant Nobelhart and Schmutzig in Berlin. So these 2 young chefs have decided to say, we fully cook only whatever is available regionally. So they even don't have olive oil or lemons, because they say that doesn't grow in the surrounding of Berlin. So all you can get from them is whatever is grown within, I think, 60 or 80 kilometers around Berlin. And well, they also use like literally every part. So if they have a chicken, everything of the chicken will be cooked up either as a broth or whatsoever. If you have a cauliflower, they also would make something of the green leaves outside the cauliflower. So they really are very conscious about the environmental aspect, but also this regional aspect. And they know each and every supplier of their food items in person. So for me, a very beautiful example for a small type of social business, which is trying to make a very nice, local and creative impact on people. I hope you have liked the journey through type C social businesses. If you would like to have more information, please visit my website monoon.eu or follow me on this channel.